This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Toku Secrets is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, Tokusatsu content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Oh, yes! This is Goldar, and you're listening to Toku Secrets Podcast. Don't tune us out, tune us in.
Welcome to Toku Secrets. Join us as we journey into the marvelous world of Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, and many other Tokusatsu. Get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. It's Morphin time! Link to the Morphin. I'm Nathan Desai, the dazzling adventurer, Spoken Silver.
I'm Patrick Allen, I'm Shinken Red.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant, Gokai Red.
And I'm Anthony Davis, also known as Kiryu Green. And we're Toku Secrets.
What's up, everyone? This is the Toku Secrets podcast presented by animesecrets.org, and today, at long last, we are wrapping up our review of Engine Sentai Go-Onger. This is episode number 10 for us, and we are reviewing the endgame arc, which lasts from GPs 47 through 50. And then we're going to be giving our overall final thoughts just to wrap up this whole thing. Very excited to do this because, spoiler alert, this is going to be probably one of the best in-game arcs that we've ever covered here on the podcast. So, yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. But as per usual, we're going to start off with talking about what happened in the previous batch. It was pretty tame. The only big thing was that the Go-Ongers and Go-On Wings had an encounter with another Gaiarc minister called Kireski, the cleaning minister, and he was very powerful, almost defeated the Go-Ongers, but then they defeated him. And after he was defeated, this mysterious box appeared. It showed up in the Gaiarc's palace, and it eventually opened to reveal this terrifying figure, and we'll find out who that is in the first episode we're reviewing here to kick off the endgame arc, GP47 Ministry Shakeup. And who is this mysterious figure? Well, we find out that his name is Yogo Shima Kritian. He is the father of Yogo Stein and the Gaiarc's prime minister, and he's also accompanied by his right-hand man, Chiraksone. For all the RPM fans out there, Yogo Shima Kritian was Venjix's final body in RPM, the one that he used in the last couple of episodes. And the Chirakosone, he was just used as like a standard attack bot of the day for RPM. I think it was called the Hyperbot, but yeah, so he shows up and they attack the city with Kitanades and Kegalesia, during which Corrugator recognizes Yogo Shima Kritian, who apparently killed many of the Gian race, that being his race of vengeance for people who don't remember that. And everyone gets critically injured because Chirakasone has the ability to devour energy attacks and send them back at the attackers. And while everyone's healing, Hanto and Gunpei, they're healing at a hot spring, and they were previously at odds with each other because, okay, long story short, Gunpei was trying to pull this scheme to get his mom off his back for getting married, which included Hanto. He wanted Hanto to dress up like a woman to pose as his fiance. Perfectly normal thing, but whatever.
Is it though?
I mean, is it really that far removed from some of the other things that Hanto has done in this season, bro?
Okay, for what Hanto has done, no, you're correct. In normal world, I don't know.
I guess not. But they bond over a lot of their previous moments, and they decide, you know what, we're going to help Corrugator avenge his people. So when Chiraksone appears again, Gunpei and Hanto, they defeat him. So what they do is they fire the junction rifle at him and take this hit, while the other Go-Ongers and the Go-On Wings, they fire the Highway Buster and Wing Boosters at him while he's distracted in order to defeat him. And then when he enlarges, he defeats Ingeno and Seikyo, but then Hanto and Gunpei get up and they defeat him in Gumburo single-handedly. They throw everything they have at him, and that's too much for him to absorb, which destroys them. But then their victory is short-lived, because then Yogo Shima Kritian appears, and he uses this signature attack of his called the Justice Disillusion. It's an attack where he unleashes this energy wave, and it vaporizes anyone that it hits, and he uses it on Gumburo. So first Burka, Gumford, and Corrugator, they all vanish. And then Gunpei and Hanto, they get vaporized too. They are dead. And the episode ends on as about as eerie of a note as you possibly can, as the remaining Go-Onders and Go-On Wings, they're absolutely horrified, and Yogoshima Kritian is laughing triumphantly. What do we think about this one, guys?
Okay, so I sat there, open mouth, and just in complete and utter amazement that this happened. Because whoever told me on Reddit and on the internet in general that Go-Onger is a very kiddie so and not really serious and just, not a big great Sentai with a lot of epic things, sir, you are freaking wrong. Because this season has no right going as hard as it did. Now, I will say, the Hanto Gunpei subplot was a little weird, but I'm okay with that in the grand scheme. But this? Killing off like 5 people in one go? Dude, what even did I just see? I was so amazed. I was so in shock. As the kid said a couple of years ago, I was shooketh.
Shooketh. Yeah, I remember the first time I got to this episode when I watched Go-Onger originally. I was like, are we sure this is the same show? This was like, kind of lighthearted, silly, goofy for like 30-something episodes, but these last 10 have been dark, and now half the team's dead. What's going on here?
Well, and the weird part is, so it was a little bit goofy, but it was never like goofy to the point of like it was a different tonal shift, right? Like that we had the moments even like in the beginning half of the season where it's like, okay, this is gonna be a serious Sentai at some points, but they're gonna have some fun along the way. That's a given.
Yeah, but it was like you never thought it would get to this extreme.
No, see this type of stuff that we saw here, I would have fully accepted it in something like Ginga Man.
Yeah, Ginga Man or Time Ranger. Well, we did have something like that in Time Ranger, but
Time Ranger didn't execute as well as they could have, in my opinion.
No, but in a season like this,
no. So this was out of left field, and I was trying so hard. And for the record, the trope continues. I still haven't watched RPM. I still don't remember RPM, but I was trying to remember, did RPM ever have a moment like this? And I don't think they did.
Well, they kind of try to do it, but it's a lot different because in this case, it's like a very special attack from Yogoshima Kritian, something that he can just naturally do. In the case of RPM, it's more of a matter of Venjix is able to hack into the biofield, which is the RPM universe's equivalent to the morphing grid, and delete people from it if they're morphed. So it can't even apply to anyone, just Rangers, effectively.
Yeah, so okay, fine. They had something similar. It wasn't executed as well as this.
It wasn't.
But just seeing them vanish in that way, you know what this was, guys? It was like watching Endgame all over again.
Yep.
And with the scene
Infinity War. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Infinity War. You're right. The scene where Peter's saying, I don't want to go yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that to me.
And honestly, one of the reasons why this is an ideal way to start off the in-game arc is because I forgot how this whole thing went down, but they're really making out Yoga Shima Kritian to be like a mass, like the threat level is maybe not quite on par with what Dog Dead was in King Oger, but that attack, like that single attack, does kind of make it clear like this isn't going to be like how like he's a much more threatening villain compared to a lot of the ones that we've seen in the past. Like he's way more threatening than all of the Balbon's big villains who are just giant monsters. Way better than I mean, he might even be a bit more powerful than a Dokoku with an attack like that.
Now, I will say, on a lighter note, Yogo Sima Kritin, I think I said his name somewhat correctly.
Close enough.
Yeah. Is he like the cross of Yogo Stein and Hiramika Dis?
Well, he's said to be Yogo Stein's father. So
right. No, but why does he have similarities to Archimedes' real name?
Oh, you talking about like the name wise? It I don't know. It probably just was like being.
I was like, did these two fuse and dance in a past life and make this monster of a beast? Because honestly, of the villains throughout Go-Onger, those two are the better villains up until this point.
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber, as I lovingly call them, were not anywhere near as interesting as Yogo Stein or Archimedes.
Yeah.
No.
Or whatever the heck Anthony calls him.
Make it like a high.
Make it like high. Make it.
But yeah, I mean, but with that said, like he is still a very like intimidating. Like I'm glad that he was one of the 3 villains that they brought back for the Go Geiger Go Sager crossover movie, where they brought on some of the more like intimidating villains. He's probably the best of those 3. The other two were Brajira, Vrock's counterpart from Go Sager, which okay, and then the other one was I can't even remember his name. He was the equivalent of the leader of the 10 Terrors from Mystic Force. I mean, and the fact that I can't remember that villain's name tells you all you need to know about how much of an impact that villain had.
So what I'm hearing is I should go rewatch the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I haven't seen that movie in a while, and I actually didn't even think to wonder when I would run into the villains from the movie in the actual Sentai during these reviews.
And he's the one where some of the more badass Rangers fight. Like he has to fight Joe, Luca, Agri / Gosei Black and Monet / Gosei Yellow. So would have been better if he went up against Marvelous. Yeah, I said that.
No, but I'm saying like Luca and Zoe is all he needed to be defeated.
Yeah. But Anthony, did you want to add anything about this episode?
Whew, man, this was definitely the start of the ending right here. Like this, even me seeing this again, like because I'm not sure I've seen like Go-Onger in like years since like it's when I first watched it. I still was like in shock at how like 'cause I forgot that Honto and Gumpert and even their engines also get to bite the dust. And I'm like, so they die too? Like what?
Yeah, I can't. There aren't very many Sentai final arcs that have a first episode this impactful.
Yep.
Because the stakes are like through the roof now. Because going forward, you can just see it in the Go-Onger's eyes. Like one wrong step and we're dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, sheesh.
But what do we want to give 47 out of 10 before we move on?
Nathan, I want to make your life a lot easier. Every episode from here on out is a 10 for me. Don't even ask me.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it's hard to argue that point because
just accept that we're all going to say 10 for each of these next 4 episodes, and that's just the way it's going to be. And
yeah, I kind of wanted to save my 10 for the final episode, but you know what? This is all a 4-part one episode split into 4 parts. So yeah,
Basically.
They are.
Yeah,
So,
let's just I'm giving them all 10 to them. This is,
yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Cool. All right, let's move on to GP48, Justice Disillusion, second part, where there's a lot of infighting that ensues with Gunpei and Ahanto dead. So one of the downsides to the Justice Disillusion attack is that Yoga Shimakritian depletes energy, so he has to retreat in order to restore it. And when he does, the Go-Ongers and Go-On Wings retreat back to the Genjiro. Sosuke gets mad because, the Go-On Wings don't seem worried enough about Gunpei and Hanto and basically kicks them out. And when Hiruto and Mew return home, their family butler is moving their stuff because apparently their parents want them to return to join them in Switzerland, but they refuse because they have something more important to do. And Kegalesia and Kitanedis, they unleash this powerful Banki-Ju called the Kete Banki, which is made of the data from several of their previous Banki-Jus. He overpowers all 5 of the Go-Ongers and knocks them away. And Ren and Saki, they start to get really afraid of what could happen with the looming threat of Yogashima Kritian. And the Go-On Wings encourages them to fight on. Mew tells Ren and Saki, well, first she tells Saki, and her determination to smile has always given her courage, and Ren has helped her realize how amazing eggs are. It's Go-Onger stuff, just roll with it. And Hiruto makes amends with Sosuke and he reveals that Mew and him became Go-On Wings because they didn't want to just because they wanted to protect the world. Because they wanted to do something only they thought they could do, but then they met the Go-Ongers and realized that they were just as strong as them. Everyone's fighting spirits get returned, and they rally to defeat the Kete Banki and all of the remaining mechs. But then, unfortunately, Yogoshima Kritian appears again and uses his Justice Disillusion. He first uses it to take out Kyoretsuo. Now, he doesn't get Sosuke because Sosuke gets ejected before he can do it. But the ancient engines are vaporized, and then he tries to go after Engine-O. But Hiruto and Mew, they come together and they say, this is something only we can do. And they take the hit. Yogoshima Kritian is forced to retreat again. But then Hiruto and Mew, they start to vanish. But luckily, this turned out to be part of a plan that they had. Hiruto starts having Bomper analyze data on Justice Disillusion. And then Hiruto and Mew, they tell the Go-Ongers, they give them the thumbs up saying, you guys can do this. We believe in you. And then they cuddle together and they die. End of episode.
And once again, I am left basically on the ground, like in shock, just upset because this time, okay, so when Hanto and Gunpei went, I was like, okay, man, that's really dark. That's really messed up. That's really sad.
With the wings.
Hiruto and Mew, dude, those are my 2 favorites. And they died?
That hurt my soul.
Can we just talk about how amazing of like a character arc closing this is for these 2? The 3 main Go-Ongers are terrified, beaten, bruised, and the wings of all people walk up to them and say, okay, we see you as equals. We have for a long time now. We just, haven't really been up to admitting it to you guys. We respect you like crazy, and we believe in you to carry on for what we're not here to help finish out. Like for them to go from you're beneath us, you're nothing, to here they are saying, no, you're equal to us, and we're happy to fight alongside you. Like that moment between Hiruto and Sasuke was maybe one of the best character interaction moments in this season.
And then they cap it off perfectly by having the Go-On Wings sacrifice themselves by saying, we believe in you guys to do it without us.
What a way to end their character arc.
And you know what really pissed me off about this scene? It's not like pissed me off about the scene because it's a bad scene, but
Mhm.
the fandom, dude. So
Oh.
I went reading some stuff on Go-Onger's ending out of curiosity.
Yep.
Because we honestly went way too long between when I finished watching the finale to now.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand the people who are trying to write on Reddit saying that there's been zero character development from episode 1 to the finale's end. Because they clearly did not see the Wings development at the very least. And honestly, this scene has a much bigger impact than I think we've even tried to even mention so far. So yeah, it's great. It's great development for the Wings, most definitely, 100%. We'll never argue with you about that. But the fact that they have respect for the main three doesn't mean that they've grown and they're the only ones that have grown. It means that Sosuke and the other two have also grown immensely to earn that right. This isn't something just given to them for plot convenience or Deus Ex Machina or whatever you want to say. This is legitimately all 6 of these guys, all 7 of these guys growing, 6 because I have thoughts on one of them. They've all grown so much in this season from what they were in the beginning until now. And we're going to talk about it a lot more later. But dude, my God, the way these characters are kind of wrapping up the quote unquote final time to really like their final character development.
Yep.
It is insane.
Yeah, I remember when I first watched this, probably like 10 years ago now. And here's the thing. I still liked it. I really liked it. Like, it was still a very memorable scene, and I still would have given this a 10, but it would have been like a lower type of 10, like maybe like S- tier. But looking at it now and like watching it again after I've already watched it and, being a bit older and like, having and comparing this to a lot of other Sentai, this is like S plus 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 times infinity type of stuff right here.
And the thing about it is, before the Wings fly away to the heavens, the scene with the family packing up and calling them home, saying, "Hey, it's time to stop playing around." That scene honestly broke me because they could have very easily left. They could have very easily said, "Nope, we're done. Peace out. Good luck. Whatever." But they said, "No, we need to be here long enough to support the others because they need us." The Wings that we met in episode 15 or whatever, they'd have left, probably. I mean, they may not have left, but they wouldn't have been thinking about the other 3. They've been thinking about how can they defeat them on their own. But now they're seeing a bigger team picture of like, okay, we're part of a bigger team. We actually like these other people. We got to work with them and support them because they need us and we need them in some weird way. So that scene where they're in the house and the mansion, that scene right there is powerful because that's the culmination of everything, including the episode way back when Gunpei was saying, "Hey, we got to learn to work together. We're all Go-Ongers together," and they're like, "No, we're not. Screw you. We're not like you. We're better than you." This is like all of that development, all of that work culminating in this one scene. I think this is a scene that kind of defines the season, honestly.
Yep.
You remember when we were talking a few episodes back where we were like, how do we compare the Wings to like who I considered the top 2 Sixth Rangers in Jeremy and Hyuga? This episode jumped the Wings over Hyuga for me.
Like I was telling you from the beginning, I think...
But I forgot how great their closure to their character arc truly was. I don't remember this episode being this good.
No, that's why I was trying to hint earlier on, like, hey, you might think Hyuga is better than the Wings, but you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, yeah, but no, this episode is what did it. These are the second best Sixth Rangers in Sentai behind Spider Kimonos.
I mean, and even then, honestly, I'm still conflicted on that. I would kind of want to make the case that maybe these two trump Spider Kimono. But
In
those
terms
are
of, I think in terms of relevance to the story, Jeremy is better. But in terms of like actual written character,
yes.
you have a case. You
No,
have
because
a very good
because
case.
see, the reason we all like Jeremy is because of how impactful he is to the plot, right? But
Mhm.
to consider this, and I know we're nowhere near the character analysis part. Sorry, Nate. I don't really care. Not really sorry.
Well, I mean, this is an episode centered on the wings, so it's not
Yeah.
out of place.
But for me, it was okay. So you got a guy like Jeremy. He defined and had the biggest impact on the season up until around the time he entered, right? Like that was his
Mhm.
big contribution, and then everything after, just amazing for him in terms of story for the entire season. This has a different impact because if you think about it, the wings come on scene and immediately we have a new dynamic, right? So
Mhm.
the wings force the Go-Ongers to have a rivalry. Cool. Okay, that's great. We have some rivalry. That's what we need from Six Rangers. We don't want them to be all part of the hunky dory campaign and they're going to go off together and fight Sauron, go to the ends of the world or whatever. Sorry, I got Lord of the Rings on my brain as well right now because it's the movie next week. But this also has an impact because not only did they have a great character arc to help the Go-Ongers get better as a season and to influence stuff that happens later on. Because if you think about it, you couldn't have had Z9, Z12 without the Wings involvement. You couldn't have had, oh crap, the road mech thing, whatever it's called.
Go Rotor.
Go Rotor, that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, you could have had all those things without the wings around, and that's all impactful for the story as a whole.
Mhm.
But you got to also think about the fact that throughout the season, you've been given some fantastic episodes centering around Hiroto, centering around Mew and Saki together, making Saki a much better character because of Mew. You didn't have
Mhm.
Mew, Saki would not be as great. You didn't have Hiroto, Sasuke wouldn't have been as great. That's just a fact. You needed these two characters to make the Go-Ongers better. Sorry, Gunpei, you didn't really get much out of it, but the main three did. And Hanto is Hanto.
And that goes back to the point I mentioned when we were talking about them in their introduction arc. What makes a good Six Ranger? The one that changes a dynamic of a team in a season.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's why Hyuga is so good, because he introduced a new like personal obstacle for Ryoma to get over. Why was Jeremy so impactful? Because he basically brought the first arc of King Oger like on its head.
Yeah.
And then like Genta, because he implemented a friendly face to the Shinkenders that kind of took Takaru to his core a little bit. What did the Wings bring? They introduced like a power and a mental like dynamic tug of war that brought the best out of both ends of the tug of war.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even in the Ranger universe, we've had some similar entries like this. I mean, look at
Eric.
To a lesser extent, look at Tommy. To a greater extent, look at Eric. Look at Trent. These three all came in and did something to really mess with the dynamic. Because as simple as Tommy's entrance was in the grand scheme, because, okay, Greenwood Evil was a fantastic story arc for the time. No two ways about that. But Tommy's impact after it's kind of lessened. But if you think about it, it's not really, because Tommy being there makes a new dynamic for the entire cast. So, they had 5 people, then they had a 6th guy who's kind of there, and they got to introduce him and keep him in the loop and all that. But Eric, that guy is basically the Wings in American content.
Oh, that is a good comparison, actually.
Trent, to a lesser extent, in my opinion, is another iteration of the Wings before the Wings were even thought about. Like, the Wings dynamic is something you see in Rangers a good bit on and off. Like, you see it in those 3 instances. You don't really see it a lot in the post. I don't really think we see it a whole lot after Trent, to be honest with you.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because Yeah, because Tommy is a basic version of it. Eric and Trent are the basic equivalents of the wings, in my opinion. But then after that,
Sam.
I mean, who?
Sam is a non-character. Daggeron is whatever. Tyzon is whatever. The Boom Twins or whatever. Antonio, Orion, Robo Knight.
Yeah, but his the issue I have with him is that like he just wasn't there for long enough. He wasn't even evil long enough. He was only evil
Who?
like Brian from Lightspeed.
Oh, okay.
Ryan.
No,
I
Ryan.
mean, Ryan did add an interesting dynamic to Lightspeed, but
No,
I don't think it was on the impact of like Trent
mm.
or Eric.
Okay, Ryan is the equivalent of Jeremy, I think, to a lesser extent.
Okay, I think that's a better comparison. Yeah,
because if you think about Ryan's story, he impacts the storyline. He gives Mitchell something to worry about. He gives
Dana.
Thank you. I was about to say Kendrick's. Like, nope, not Kendrick's.
Wrong pink.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Sixth Ranger has to bring something to the table, which is why I think we as a group found characters like Orion or Ivan or
oh no, I'll defend Ivan. I'll defend Ivan.
I mean, you can defend Ivan all you want, but what did he bring to the table?
I mean, yeah, in that dynamic, yeah. Or why we spent a good chunk of, I don't remember what podcast episode it was, dunking on Mega Silver. What did he do?
I don't remember that podcast, but okay.
I can't remember when it was we were talking about.
I think it was when we were talking in our previous Go-Onger podcast when we were not in the previous one, but the one where we had to update the character tier rankings and we were kind of bagging on Mega Silver.
Okay.
What does Mega Silver do exactly?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that question. He doesn't do anything.
My brain heard Mega Silver, and I thought you were talking about Orion. And I was like, why are we talking about Orion that much? There's no point. No, I know you're talking about now.
Yeah, Zane's Sentai counterpart. Yeah, he doesn't do dick.
No, and nor does Zane.
No, Zane is more useful.
No, but what I'm saying is Zane as a Sixth Ranger was not as impactful in the grand scheme of things. He's a cool Ranger, but he's not really, he doesn't really do as much as I would want him to do.
He's still more useful than his Sentai counterpart, though.
Yeah, well.
But to get back on the subject of this episode, and we could talk more about Hiroto Mew when we get to the.
It's not a Hiroto Mew worship podcast. What?
It is.
Well, yeah, it is. It is, but we'll have more time. We're going to take a little bit of a break and then get back to that worship at the end of this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anthony, you want to add anything about this episode in particular?
This will hurt me the most because you know what I'm saying. Use my girl, obviously. And of course, Hiroto is like obviously the bro of all bros. Just FYI.
But also, it is very.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
It was very Hiroto of I'm going to put myself into blast for scientific reasons. Hey, Bomber, study this thing. Help him out some. Like,
yeah, and
he's always got a plan.
Only other thing I'm going to say is, like, you know, people who like to bash this Sentai, but then say that RPM is the greatest thing that ever existed. RPM botches this. RPM directly adapts this moment, by the way. They didn't adapt Hanto and Gunpei getting killed. Like, Dylan and Ziggy never died, but they do it with Gold and Silver, and they botch that moment badly.
It also doesn't help that Jim and Gemma just aren't the same.
Yeah, we didn't personally like Jim and Gemma. It's like, oh, when they're about to die, that's when they start like acting serious. I'm like, really, y'all? Like,
no, but it doesn't even feel earned. That's where the whole problem is. Like, it's not like Jim and Gemma don't do anything at the beginning of that episode. Then Venjix is revealed to have this ability to delete people from the biofield, and he tries to go after the high octane Megazord. And then Jim and Gemma just randomly decide, hey, let's take the hit instead to save them. And then they get hit, and then Jim says, we would have kept fighting, and then they die. Like, that's it. Like, and it's not like they even did that as like a way to like help Dr. K stop Venjix, which is exactly what Hiroto Mew did it for. It's just they did it because the Sentai did it. but it
pretty
has
much.
absolutely no emotional impact
Mm-mm.
whatsoever.
No.
But yeah, do we? Okay,
10.
everybody gives
Yeah.
a 10. Yeah,
10.
so
Nate,
wanna-
I already told you. Don't ask. You already know.
yeah. All right. Let's move on to GP 49 Final Battle, Part 3 of the in-game arc, where so the Go-Ongers, they're down, but they're trying to stay strong, and then the Guy arc commences this invasion with a bunch of the Bandoma, and and Yogashima Kritian reveals that he's created a cog in the back of the Gaiarch's palace, which has an official name. I just forgot what it was. Called the gear is called the Deus Haguru Magir, which when he activates it, it's going to unleash an endless army of Bandoma, which will overwhelm the Go-Onders and engines and completely destroy the human world. The three, so Yogashima, Kritian, Kitanadis, and Kegalesia, they confront the main three Go-Ongers. They use the weapons of their teammates. So Sosuke uses Hirotomi uses rocket daggers, Ren uses Gunpei's cow laser, Saki Hanto's bridge axe. And when they're battling, Yogashima Kritian starts using the other two ministers as shields for himself, which shocks them understandably. And when they retreat, the Go-Ongers, they head to the Genjiro. They have Bomper track the location where the Bondama army is being launched, and they head there to stop, and they prepare to head there to the Gaiarch's palace to stop the army. They share this brief moment remembering when they first became Go-Ongers and all they've been through before they had their not last transformation, but what could be their last transformation. And then they storm the Gaiarch palace. Yogashima Kritian tries to fight them off, but then Kitanadis and Kegalesia, they're angry at how heartless he is and how he uses the people who work for him as shields. So they destroy the box that he came from, and that gives him the power of his Justice Delusion attack. So that renders that attack useless, and Yogashima Kritian gets really angry and he attacks them, severely injuring them. And as the two are dying, they reveal to the Go-Ongers that what the whole Deus Hagura Magir, and Bomper also discovers that the other Go-Ongers, the wings and the engines, are actually in this like alternate state of the human world that's powered by the Magir, and they could be restored if they destroy it. And then Kitanadis and Kegalesia, they die too, but they're happy that they can be reunited with Yogostein. And Saki puts their hands together as a sign of respect as they're dead. And then the episode ends with the Go-Ongers preparing to confront Yogashima Kritian and destroy the Magir. What do you think about this one, guys?
The directness for them to be like, screw this, we're going right after them ourselves. Where's their base?
I think the biggest impact of this episode is Sosuke. And it's a direct correlation of what happened in the last episode and what we talked about for like the last 20 minutes or so. Because Sosuke has changed immensely. So,
Yeah.
He's still a goofball, right? Like, he's always going to be a goofball. Even in Boom Boonzer, he's a goofball. But he's a bit more mature now, and he's more serious when he needs to be. Like, in that earlier scene where Saki's depressed and she can't eat breakfast without the wings and without Hanto and all them. And Sosuke is like, well, you have to eat to keep your energy. One might interpret that as an asshole move on his part, but if you really think about it, he's really trying his level best to motivate the team to say, hey, they're gone and it sucks, but that's okay. We're still here and we still have a job to do. We got to fight. And to fight, we need energy. And to get energy, we got to eat. And that isn't something you would expect from Sosuke on episode 1. But it's something he gained over time because he learned from the wings quite a bit. And I think his strength is a testament to how much he's grown as a character from end to now.
So you're telling me the Airhead Red, who was an idiot at the beginning, actually got character development, unlike a certain other person in the previous Sentai.
You know what, Nate? I was gonna try and go a whole episode.
I mean, like, and I not even like to just bring up just the joke that you hate John at a ridiculously high level, but genuinely, Sasuke is the perfect example of how to write a character like this. And
Right.
it's not just a John problem, because I think every other Red written in that same vein of hyper energy, they're all almost poorly written in some regard, except for Sosuke.
I mean,
he's the outlier here.
No, we need to watch Hurricane Red. I think Hurricane Red is okay, but I'll have to go back and watch that one. He might be another exception, but even then, he's not as good as Sosuke.
Would you consider Mega Red one of those kind of Reds?
Yeah, kinda. Mega Red was kind of. He's
another good written one then. But
yeah, so I mean, your point stands because there are other characters outside of Zahn who are equally bad. Well, like, not equally bad, because nobody's equally bad to Zahn. Zahn is just the epitome of bad. But other examples of Reds who could have learned from Sosuke, because they came much later, would be Takahata from Nin Ninja. Oh my god, he could have learned so much from Sosuke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've only seen like 3 episodes of Nin Ninja, and I was like, I swear
I'm
to God,
sorry.
if he stays like this the whole season, then the season's unwatchable. So I'm guessing he doesn't change.
I read Nathan's review, and yes, he never changes from what I can tell.
God dang it.
Lucky from Q Ranger, it starts off kind of bad, but from what I'm seeing now, he doesn't seem too bad.
No, I don't mind Lucky after, like, to me, it took 5 episodes for me to be like, okay, I can tolerate Lucky. I can respect Lucky. He's not a great Red, but I don't know. Anthony, Nate, what would you think? Like maybe a C tier? Maybe?
Yeah, C tier.
I've watched the entire. I've watched that Sentai in its entirety. He's kind of a hit or miss for me. I don't necessarily hate him, but I don't necessarily like him either.
Exactly.
I'd say he's C tier. I don't think he. I don't think he deserves to be like mentioned in the same company as Takaharu or Wright from Tokuger. That's another one.
Whoa! Hold up. Wright is not a hyperactive idiot, though.
Yeah, but Wright could be an idiot.
No, Wright is an idiot, but he's not a hyperactive idiot.
But the other thing, but Wright is also someone who kind of gets a little god moded in Tokuger, because that's the other problem. This is one of the reasons why Sosuke works and some of the other ones don't, because they're constantly trying to god mode all of these other Airhead Reds. Like John is god moded in Geki
Yes,
Ranger,
he
because
is.
apparently he's the only one who can defeat Ryo, despite the fact that he doesn't know anything, and Go has been training his whole life to fight Ryo, but nope. John is the only guy who can defeat him because of some stupid birthright BS.
Which one's Go?
That was a Violet.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's how much I like Geki Ranger. I can't remember the character names anymore.
And like Takaharu, despite the fact that he's a reckless guy who doesn't do well in the classes, he's somehow always in the top for the last ninja race. Wright is somehow always the one who has the best imagination, even though I would argue that Kagura, the pink one, has more imagination than him. But Sosuke, I mean, the only big thing about him is that he motivates the team to be their best. But he's the leader. He's supposed to do that.
No, but okay, so here's the thing. On Reddit, I hate that I've spent so much time on Reddit, by the way, but on Reddit, the biggest complaint they have about him is that he's just loud. And I'm like, okay, he's loud, but look a little bit deeper than the
There's
loudness,
a method.
right?
There's a method to his loudness.
Right. He's not being loud for the sake of being an idiot.
Yeah, it's not. I'll give this. His character development is not as in your face as it is for like Hiruto or Mew. It's very subtle throughout the season, through little events. And you can really tell it when you go back to like the first 5 episodes and you watch how he acts, and then you look at how he acts in these like final like 10 episodes. He is more stern. When things get more serious, he is more direct. Like, look at how he handled Yogo Stein when he came back to life. He didn't speak. Like, opening arc, Sasuke would have like mocked him and stuff, but Sasuke was like, screw you, and then killed him.
Do you remember when we were watching the Boom Boomster crossover with Sasuke coming back?
Yeah, and you were like, there's a difference to him here than there was. Yeah.
Like, because remember, I had the blessing, I think, that I had only seen like maybe 15 episodes of Go-Onger at the time of that crossover. And so I was like, man, this is a really different Sasuke. I can't explain why he's different, because characteristic-wise, he's the same between both iterations, but there is something about him that just felt a bit more somber in a way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because of the growth he's had throughout. And honestly, this might be a soccer for some people, but I think in the long term, the best written characters are the ones who have that subtle build up over time that you don't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the end of the road, you turn back and you're like, wait, how did this idiot turn into this badass?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's how Sasuke is for a lot of people, I think, who understand it.
Yeah.
But the problem, I hate saying this because I don't want to bash on a whole fandom, but I think the problem with the fandom is they don't go deep. They look at the surface level and they're like, oh, he's loud. Oh, he's, typical red, blah, 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 whatever. We don't like him. Screw him. But if you take a moment to really look at the characters that you're talking about, you're going to see the faults. And that goes both ways, right? Like, there are characters that I know the fandom love, like John. And, we have people in our YouTube comments telling us all the time, like, hey, John's not so bad. Why are you bashing on him? There's more than one of them that does that.
My blog comment section, because when I was doing like that Ask Me That Question segment, you left a thing saying John is the worst Sentai read of all time, and then I shared a photo of like John like screaming and saying, "Yep," and here's his response to that. And then a bunch of people were leaving me messages saying, "Hey, come on, John ain't that bad. He's actually pretty good."
No, but see, that's the thing is that
that
because people are looking at the surface level, but looking at the surface level, I don't understand why they like John. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, not even trying to be the overcritical hater that I am with John, just being a genuine Toku fan saying, okay, I don't understand why people like John. And I've tried to get people to explain to me why they like John, but the most I've ever gotten from anyone has been, hey, he's not that bad. He's a decent red. He's a solid red. Like somebody said at one point, John is a very solid red. I don't understand that comment because a solid red means somebody who's gone through something and come out the other end stronger for it and a better leader for his team. So if you're thinking about that, some of the best examples I'll name are going to be Marvelous, Takeru, Taya, I think, is also a great example of that, even though we're not him yet.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, I don't know yet. I'm not gonna do my rankings per se, but Sosuke definitely fits the bill. But I don't know where he falls in the rank, right? Like I know he's there.
Well, we can figure out the ranking when we get to the end of this.
Right. But that's what I'm trying to say is that I don't understand why people would say, oh, he's a solid red.
I mean,
because
it's subtle in this regard. At the beginning of the season, Sasuke acted like he was invincible. But through all the stuff he's been through, now he knows he's invincible.
Well, no, he doesn't.
He's battle hardened now. He knows where his weaknesses were and how to make up for them. Now he's just a better fighter, and he's not cocky for the sake of being cocky. He's confident now.
Okay, but see, I'm going to disagree with saying he's like overpowered or like invincible. Those are words that I wouldn't put on him. I would say the confidence is very on point. I would say the battle hardened is very on point.
Mhm.
But when you start to say stuff like, "Oh, he's overpowered or godlike or
No, I'm not
invincible,"
saying that like I think he is. That's how
Yeah.
he sees himself. He felt he was invincible and he couldn't lose. Now that he's been through stuff, he knows how not to lose. So now he knows he's
Yeah.
invincible. That it's that little change of mentality of feeling a way and knowing how
Yeah.
you are.
But at the same
And
time, I think he's conscious enough
yeah,
to know that he is not invincible and that he still needs other people.
mhm.
This isn't something that I think has been translated well into Zahn's very immature ego. Like, he has no concept of, hey, I have people around me that can maybe help me if I let them help me, or I can learn from people. Like, Sosuke genuinely learned from the wings. Sosuke genuinely
yeah.
learned from his teammates minus Gunpei.
You're gonna have a field day when we get to Gunpei at the end of this.
Oh
aren't you?
yeah. All right. Another 10. Let's get to the
Nate,
end.
let's get on to the end.
Yeah, let's get to the ending.
Well, Anthony, did you want to add anything else about this episode before we move on?
I just really like how it felt like a penultimate episode, especially with them finding out what the base was.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yeah, there's not very many more things hyped than one of the factions charging the other's base.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only other time I can remember that happening, well, okay, not in Sentai. I remember it happening in Power Rangers once when Casey goes into the
God, that was
Daishi's palace.
That was such a good scene too.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best episode of Jungle Fury, in my opinion.
The way he just walks into Jared's throne room unmorphed, he's like, "I'm gonna beat you up now." It's like, God dang.
But anyway, let's move on to a GP final Road of Justice. Final episode brings finality to the series. And this is all, so the Go-Ongers, they destroy. So first they trap Yogashima Kritian in the Bankiju cage, and then Sosuke uses the Kankan bar, using all three of their engine souls to destroy the Deus Haguru Megir, and that wipes out all of the Bandoma. And Yogashima Kritian, he gets angry and unleashes this energy wave, which destroys the Gyark's palace, but the Go-Ongers are able to escape an Engino, and they think he's dead, but then he's revealed to have this mechanism in his body to rebuild himself, and he vows, I'm going to destroy the world. And then he goes to the city ready to destroy everything. He gets stopped by Hanto, Gunpei, and the Wings. They've been restored with the destruction of the Megir. Everyone gets reunited. Yogashima Kritian, he attacks them and knocks them down, saying they can't win, but then they vow to keep fighting until they've defeated him. They do, and this is just my opinion, but I don't care. They have the greatest final henshin and final roll call ever in Super Sentai. I say that. I have seen almost every Sentai, and I have no problem saying that. If you don't agree with me, fight me, sue me. I really don't care. And then, and I'm pretty sure everybody else here agrees with me too. But I guess Yogashima Kritian enlarges, and they form G12 formation, and they keep on fighting him, and then they finally defeat him by piercing him through his torso, by charging right at him. That destroys his rebuilding mechanism, and that causes him to be defeated for good. The Go-Ongers and Go-On Wings bid farewell to the engines. They have to return to the machine world with Bomper, but then several months later, we get our epilogue. Gunpei's returned to the police. Hanto is delivering pizzas again. Saki has a job at a cake shop. She wants to still open hers someday. Hiroto and Mew are living a life among the upper class with their parents. They meet up with Ren, who's a professional mechanic working for Sosuke, to cheer on Sosuke as he's returning to racing on a kart-like racer, which was pretty funny. But then Speedor and Bomper appear. They reveal that the remnants of the Gyark are attacking other brain worlds, and they invite the Go-Ongers and Go-On Wings to rejoin forces and protect the other brain worlds, which of course they accept. And the episode and series ends as Speedor gives a narration that This part of the Go-Onger story is over, but a new part is only just beginning. And that is the end of Go-Onger.
So I'm going to start by saying, in that epilogue, I was very confused until the last possible moment on why Hanto was in handcuffs.
Yeah,
they didn't
That scene was... No, they explained it at the end.
I know, but I was
No,
like, he was just running around the city in handcuffs and no one was explaining why.
Yeah, I was like, what did he do? Why did Gunpei arrest him? I thought they were like best buddies, but it turns out Hanto literally locked himself with the handcuffs, and I don't think Gunpei has a key because Gunpei's an idiot.
That's about on brand for those two, huh?
It really
Yeah.
is.
But also just the thing where they sit down at the racetrack and they're like, "Where's Selsuke?" And they see him driving around on a go-kart.
Dude,
like,
that was honestly was on brand.
Yeah.
He was in a full-on like NASCAR heat protective race suit driving around on a go-kart. So
Honestly,
stupid.
you know what? I don't remember what podcast it was, but we were talking about Mario Kart at one point, right?
Yeah, we were. For Go-Onger's first podcast, when
yeah, ironically,
we were talking about how Go-Onger's theme song should be played during Mario Kart.
Mhm.
Okay, but now we have the go-kart for Mario to like drive in, and we have the driver. We could just port Sosuke into Mario Kart.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
a Sosuke Me Racer outfit with a Speedor cart.
Okay,
Get on it.
So when I go to San Antonio to meet Sosuke's actor, I'm gonna try and ask him if he could like make that happen somehow.
Pitch an idea. we need this.
I'm gonna have to do that because those guys are really fun to talk to, honestly. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time.
But yeah, I mean what I say about the final henshin and roll call being the best, because it's one of two where they actually played the theme song over it. The other one I can remember was Maji Ranger, and like, but it works a lot better because they're doing it helmetless. They're transformed, but they don't have their helmets on. Like everything about like the build up to them, where they're making their speech to Yogo Shimakriti and that they're going to keep fighting on, and then they transform. Like everything about that is just epic, epic, epic. Best final roll call ever.
So I think part of why this season does so well, for a very superficial reason, is that we have a lot of scenes with these guys not wearing their helmets, like in the mech, in the cockpit of the mech, on the ground, in the base.
Mhm.
Like it's a very natural thing, but you don't see that very often with the other Sentai seasons, really.
Nope.
You see it a lot in Mighty Morphin and a little bit in Zordon era after, but never really after that even.
I mean, RPM to its credit did kind of do that, but again, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's some seasons where you never ever see them in suit without their helmets on, like ever.
Of course.
Yeah, but it being like a reoccurring thing, it made it felt like the characters were, those people were actually in the costumes. It was and just to see the actual actors do the role, the poses during the roll call is always nice. That's another reason why I like the Shinkenger ones too, because they were out of costume when they did the roll call themselves one time.
You know, it's funny we're talking about this. The only time I can think of it happening in Ranger is actually Wild Force.
Yeah,
which was genuinely kind of cool.
They were ripping off the Gal Ranger thing, though.
Yeah, it still made it cool. It was like one of the few. That was one of the few cool things Wild Force did.
Yeah,
yeah.
Wild Force again. Fast forward to the end. That's what they did.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. The only other thing I'm gonna ask is, producers of RPM, why didn't you just adapt this final battle? Like you have the Sentai footage right there, because you want to know, because the final battle for RPM is that the main three, they're fighting Venjix. He gets the upper hand, but then Jim and Gemma get restored. They shoot this tower down and it starts falling toward Venjix, and he just stands there instead of running away because he's an idiot, just saying no, and then it falls and crushes him. Like, why didn't you just use the footage from the episode?
You understand that Disney did not really care about Power Rangers at that point. They pretty much was like that. They were legit thinking that this was going to be the last season they were going to do, and they just was like, nah.
Yeah, but you can't use that Sentai footage. I mean, everything that they do on RPM is original footage for this final battle. So, ironically, that would probably cost even more money than just taking this Sentai footage, dubbing over it, maybe taking some different Go-Onger cockpit footage so that they have their helmets on instead. But like, you couldn't just do that. Sorry, I hate that RPM final battle with a passion, and I don't understand why they didn't just adapt this thing more directly. That, like, how can people think that RPM is a masterpiece and this isn't?
You know what's the weird thing about that is that this ending arc would have worked really well on RPM because it would have fit the darker tone of RPM.
Yeah.
But they chose to be a little bit more restrained with the final set of episodes in that season for whatever reason.
You know what's sad about that? I forget the director's name, but I heard the director of RPM left.
Eddie Gazillion.
That guy. Yeah, Eddie Gazillion left. And the person who came in after, I think it was Chip, maybe?
Yeah.
He watered down a bit.
Oh, he didn't leave. He just got straight up fired.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember Nathan from the Power Trip mentioning it on their podcast when they're doing RPM that Eddie Gazillion had a much darker plan.
Oh
yeah,
I know about that.
Yep, his plan was that Dylan would have been a body that he had been working for Venjix this whole time as one of Venjix's like someone who had been working for Venjix, and then he finally gets taken over by Venjix as a last-ditch effort, and the Rangers have to kill Dylan.
Yeah.
Man, that would have been such a better ending.
Yeah, that's what I remember them talking about in the Power Trip podcast.
It would have left an emotional scar on people, and it probably would have been maybe a bit too dark for Power Rangers, but honestly, that would have made it really memorable.
No, honestly, that might have saved the franchise from the craziness they went through.
Yep. But I think it's I know that we're going to give this whole thing a 10, but
yes,
it's a 10. Like, it is a 10 for me, but it's like I said earlier. Like, I remember watching this in-game arc and thinking, yeah, this is really good. This is S tier stuff. But now I'm kind of half tempted to say that this might be like at least top 5, maybe even the number 1 in-game arc in a Super Sentai. Like,
I'm going to repeat my words from the other day before we got on podcast number whatever, Nathan.
Yeah.
This is the best damn endgame arc in the entirety of Sentai, in my opinion. From what I've seen.
I think out of the seasons I've seen, this would be the 3rd.
What are your first 2?
Shinkendra and Go-Onger, for the reasons of Takaru and Rackless's revelations defined the entire season and like brought everything full circle. I think this season is missing something like that had like a revelation that like encapsulated everything of what the season was about. But on its own merits, no, it's like because it takes the dramatic stakes and raises them to a level that no other Sentai finale arc has ever really reached.
And that's what I'm aiming for. Like I completely agree with you. The Shinkendra and Go-Onger had much better. I don't want to say it had a much better written story because that'd be unfair to Go-Onger.
Yeah,
but
it was just more of like the revelations of Rackless and Takaru. Like that was what the season ultimately, was building up to, and they both stuck the landing. But
no, I'll agree with you, Patrick. I think top 3 is probably fair.
But yeah, we can. Wait, Anthony, where you've seen a lot of Sentai too. Where would you rank this in terms of your in-game arcs?
It's pretty high up there by how well it did. Let's see. That's actually a tough one because I really like this one. I still think Go-Onger did slightly better, but that's only because I really, really enjoyed Go-Onger.
Yeah.
I I think the thing about King Ozer that makes it memorable and really freaking badass was literally it had the endgame feeling from the Marvel universe.
That
Yeah.
final episode was insane.
It had no
Yeah.
it had no right going that hard.
No,
But-
it didn't.
No, right. No.
And
But-
I
but it
think
was fun.
so. I think here's how I look at it. King Ozer is the best in terms of epic, grandiose endgame. Go-Onger is probably the best in terms of the stakes have never been higher. You literally have no chance of winning, but here's some 1 in a million chance of you pulling it off when you pull it off. And then Sinkinzer goes for the, hey, let me pull the rug from underneath you and make you reevaluate your entire viewing of this entire dang season from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Because in terms of that, those 3 Sentais do the best in those 3 categories I just listed.
Yeah.
Obviously, King Ozer had a similar thing with Reckless Patrick, but I think Takeru did it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I kind of view it. And it really becomes subjective at that point of, well, how do you define the best endgame arc? And my answer is
personal preference.
Right. And so for me, I think Go-Onger is the knee-jerk reaction best one for me because I'm looking for that. The stakes have never been higher. You got a 1 in a million chance of doing it, and you got to somehow find a way to make that 1 in a million chance happen.
Yeah. And with all the Sentai I've seen, there's not a season's final arc that comes close to this.
No. And if you're using that as your grading scale, no. But if you're using pulling the rug from underneath you, Senkinzer gets it. If you're going to pull who has the best Marvel endgame comparison, that's King Ozer, hands down.
I would probably rank King Oger just slightly ahead of this the more I think about it. Just because, I mean, the other thing that King Oger has an advantage over this Sentai is that all 6 of the King Ogers were pretty great characters. This one...
Yeah, sorry, Gunpei.
5 out of 7 isn't bad. Well, okay, I mean, Hanto was also okay, so 6 out of 7 isn't bad. But still,
no, Hanto, we'll get to it later, but
yeah.
I have thoughts on him and Gunpei.
But I would still say, I mean, I remember this in-game arc has actually gotten better. And here's the funny thing: if I ever decide that I just want to watch this Sentai for fun for a 3rd time, I feel like it'll probably get even better than it already is for me. Because here's the thing: I watched it the first time, I thought it was good. It was a 10 out of 10, but it was a 10 out of 10 in like the same way I would give Ginga Man's. It's good. It's really good. But now it's on the level of like, again, S+++ tier. So it definitely belongs in the top 5. And again, like all these fandoms who just love to bash Go-Onger, just shut up.
I don't get it.
The 4 of us are right, and all the 100,000s of you that bash this Sentai, you're all wrong. I have no problem saying that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really just want to invite people onto this podcast who are like, what is it called, TokuCast or whatever, and some other people, and just like talk to them and understand what is it you're missing, or what is it that we're missing, because the perspectives have been so different throughout. It's not just Go-Ons where we have a difference of opinion. It's Ginga Man, it's Zero Ranger, Lost Galaxy. Yeah, if you want to go to the Ranger route.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I'm
even
still
Time
trying-
Ranger, people are kind of lukewarm on it, or they really love it. And I mean, the more I look back at Time Ranger now, I'm getting more and more lukewarm towards it as time goes on. Like it had some great moments, but it's starting to fall more and more out of my top 5, top 10 ranking. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
But like, there are
Honestly,
people
them-
out there that I've seen that really like. They either love Time Ranger and call it the number 1, or they think it's really terrible because Time Force is better in their opinion.
But then everybody calls Ginga Man like a boring, like Riz. We even had 2 people on this podcast before. I'm not calling them out; they were awesome, but they said that they didn't like Ginga Man.
Only one of them said that, not 2 of them.
Yeah.
I know that I walked into this podcast saying that Go-Onger is probably the most underrated Sentai that I've seen, but after seeing Ginga Man 2 times over the span of like 3 years, What is it with the people with that season? I don't understand how people can hate it. Like, truly, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't
think
know, man. I don't get it.
It's probably debatable over what. Well, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I would probably call this one more underrated than Go-Onger, more underrated than Gingaman. Sorry, just because with Gingaman, people are just kind of indifferent to it. Like they think, yeah, I mean, it's all right, but Lost Galaxy is better. People hate this, so that's why I would call it more underrated than Gingaman.
Yeah.
And then people love Die Ranger, and man, I can't wait to rip that season a new butthole when we get to it.
Yeah. But with that said, we can move on to doing the analysis stuff. Obviously, the main course is going to be the Ranger-related stuff. But do we want to say anything about the Guy arc and the villains before we move on to that main course?
Yogo Stein, Himeki Midas, and crap, what was his name? The guy, the final enemy.
The Fusion.
Makritian.
Yeah. I think those three salvaged the villain. They're still not as in-depth as anything as like the Jetman villains, which are still the standard for bad guys in Sentai to me.
Yeah.
But like they have some memorable like they're not bad villains, but they have a lot more than like I'd go as far as say these are better than Gingaman's villains.
But see, that's not a hard thing to do because I didn't really like most of the Gingaman villains.
No, Gingaman, Time Ranger probably has better villains.
Okay, so for all the hate that I give Geki Ranger, I think the villains I think Rio and Melee are much better.
100%.
Yeah.
And even Long, to some extent, a bit better. Long,
the main villain.
Oh, Dragon. And Geki Ranger?
Yeah.
I don't really care about him.
I hate his motivation.
Yeah, I know. But I'll defend Kegalesia and Kitanadis a little bit because when they die in this endgame arc, it is genuinely emotional and it does feel earned to some extent, especially when they say they're going to be rejoining Yogo Stein, because to their credit, they seem genuinely torn up when he was killed. Go ahead, Patrick.
So I'm going to make another Go-Onger Boom Boonger comparison. How these two were handled is how I feel the three-seaters are going to be handled by the time Boom Boonger's over with.
Yeah.
They're going to turn on the boss.
Yeah.
At the very last second.
Yeah.
But I want to give them a little bit of credit. Like, I don't think they're great. Like, I definitely think the three-seaters are the better villains, which is ironic because they're both like full suit characters, while Kegalesia is a face character. But but I don't know. Like, I don't think they deserve to be like mentioned in like the higher up villains, but they're not on Jetman's level, but they're certainly not as lowly as, I don't know, like maybe the Gingaman villains, although Mega
Ranger.
Oh yeah, they're better than the Mega Ranger. They're better than the Neji Regia for sure. Everyone in the Neji Regia.
Oh god.
Oh gosh, Dr. Hintler was such a wasted villain.
And I know this isn't saying much either, but I would say that they're better than Von Dora's gang. Again, that's not saying
no,
much
they are.
So.
Dora.
But yeah, I forgot how big of a like Yogoshima Kritiya might actually be one of my favorite like final bosses. Like I would probably put him in the top 5 now just on his threat level alone because the fact that he has the power to like effectively Thanos people.
Yeah.
Like that.
So here's my thing. Yogo Archimedes, that's his name. Deal with it. I don't give a crap. Yoga Archimedes is only a great villain because he is frightening as all get out.
Yeah.
You take away that threat factor, he's a very dull and boring guy.
But you could say the same thing. Well, no, I think Dog Dead had some character to him.
Dog Dead was great. Don't even.
Yeah, Dog Dead had a character.
Yeah, he had actual personality.
Long had a personality. It wasn't a good one, but there was a personality there. But yeah, like as a villain, as that's just strictly an obstacle, he is like he's up there.
Yeah.
Plus, I do think he legitimately looks a bit more intimidating compared to, I don't know. I mean, Hirameki Midas also looked pretty badass, but
Mm-hmm.
when you compare him to like Yogo Stein, Keith Natus, and especially Kigalesia's designs, who are a bit more like goofy in nature, he legitimately looks like someone you don't want to fight.
And it's funny that you mentioned those two were intimidating because those are the two bodies of Vengex. So
Exactly.
maybe the RPM writers agreed with you on that.
Yeah.
But Anthony, you want to add anything about the villains?
I thought Yogo Stein was pretty good, and I also like his dad. Had the cleaner guy had stayed on longer, I would have liked him more too. But he was barely there. He was only there for like 2 episodes. It was like Christmas special.
Yeah, the cleaner guy is probably the one guy who I would probably say is better than RPM, the kilobyte guy. But we can get to that when we eventually review RPM.
I wouldn't necessarily say that because I kind of did like Kilobyte because he was low key like underhanded. He was pretty evil.
He talked
like he's doing his whole thing. You have to. I have to watch it to understand it because.
But okay, do we want to move on to giving the final tier rankings for each of these Rangers?
This will be fun.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna compare them to the other Sentais across the board.
Well, let's go one by one each.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with the man, the myth, the legend, Solsuke.
Yeah. So all I'm gonna do is give a tier ranking of like where does he fall in like the S tier system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm gonna try and give myself the headache to figure out where they belong beyond that.
Yeah.
So Sosuke's an S tier for me. The final episodes here solidified it because before I was kind of wishy-washy on A and S, but seeing this endgame arc, Sosuke's an S tier. He might be in the lower end of S tier, but he's still an S tier.
Yeah, he's either back end of S or like the highest ranked in A tier. He's somewhere in there because he is the type of Red Ranger I hate, but they wrote him in such a way that I can't hate him. And we talked about the subtle development of his character throughout the season, and by the end he was more serious when he needed to be and everything. Like he's a phenomenal Red, and probably by far the most underappreciated Red Ranger in Sentai.
But see, that's part of why he's S tier for me is that Sosuke is very subtly developed and he doesn't really need like the big moment.
Yeah.
And also like I don't know, I think Sosuke is better written than like I don't know most other Reds that we've talked about in the last couple of months.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For me, so Sosuke is probably the biggest riser for me when it comes to these because I'm actually looking at my tier rankings that I posted on my blog way back like last year, and I'm looking right here. Sosuke I actually have as a low B tier one because I liked him. You know, I didn't think I liked him. I didn't think he was annoying as some other people thought he was, but honestly, now he does rise up to the S tier. I would put him as my last S tier because the 3 S tiers I have are Takeru, Marvelous, and Ryoma. I want to put those 3 ahead of him. I know you're not deciding where you want to put him or not, Riz, but I definitely want to put him behind Ryoma just because I think Ryoma's character arc is a lot better. But Sosuke still deserves to be in the S tier for several reasons. I mean, first of all, I want there to be a representative for like the idiot, hot-headed Red in the S tiers, and Sosuke definitely deserves that.
I respect that.
But even if I didn't want that representation, I would still put Sosuke there just because he's a fun character and he develops. He's a airheaded idiot Red done right. And again, you cannot convince me that Junki Takegami was watching Geki Ranger. He turned to Michiko Yokote and said, Yokote-san, this John character that you're doing just sucks. He's horrible. And then Yokote was like, oh, yeah, well, do you think you could do any better? I mean, he said challenge accepted. He created Sosuke, and then he dropped the mic and retired from Sentai writing because this was his peak. You can't convince me that didn't happen.
Dropped the mic and moonwalked off stage.
And but he did leave. He hasn't written anything in Sentai since he's done Go-Onger, to my knowledge. So yeah, he probably did just say, "Yep, this is my masterpiece." Ciao, guys. So, but Anthony, where would you put Sosuke?
Oh yeah, he's definitely up there. Am I allowed to make him? I feel like we all might want to make him S rank, don't we?
I think Patrick is still having his jury out.
I like Nate's point of because he's the best hot-headed Red Ranger in Sentai that you want to put him in the S tier for being an outlier. I respect that. I'll move him to S.
Hell yeah, my man.
Nate brought up a very interesting point that him being such an outlier of that archetype, it needs to be highlighted.
Yeah. Also, on a very personal, selfish scale, I said it before. I'm going to say it again. The videos of Sosuke's actor from Power Morphicon are just so pure and wholesome and incredible that you can never give him anything less than an S tier, just because of the actor as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming you're S-ing him too, Anthony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
S is across the board.
All right, let's move on to Blue, Ren.
So Ren is where I'm a little conflicted on where I want to put him in the S tier system.
He might honestly be the most difficult Ranger in this season to rank.
He is because, okay, let me kind of lay out what I'm thinking real quick. So Ren, to me, is the most consistent character throughout the season. Ren comes in, he has a personality, he has some good moments, but he doesn't change. He doesn't really evolve. He's very consistent throughout. And, you know, there are some characters we've talked about in the past, namely, I think it was Pink and Sinkinzer, where I made the argument that you don't need this character to go through something crazy to be given like a higher rank. Ren is a character who from get-go is a fun character. He's nice, he's awesome. He's not S tier by any means. I'm thinking low A, high B, but leaning more high B the more I think about him.
Yeah, he's one of those stagnant character growth characters that they're the same from start to finish, but it's a good thing that he started off as such a, laid back, level-headed, calm, just nice character to see on screen and have him talk every so often.
Yeah.
He's not offensive like, well, when we get to Gunpei, we'll talk about that, but he's just the nice guy of the team. And I don't think he really needed to change. He was kind of like, he started off as Sasuke's kind of like level-headed
foil.
Yeah. And he kind of stayed that way throughout the season, and he kind of like took command of the team when Sasuke died for that one episode. And yeah, like there's nothing wrong with him. It's just that I do wish that he developed a little bit more because I liked his character a lot, but there's nothing wrong with him. I think B is a pretty comfortable spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very solid B.
I had Ren ranked as being my original tiers, and I feel comfortable keeping him there. I might peg him up a little bit over some of the other blues that I ranked him below. Like I would definitely put him ahead. Like some of the ones that I have ranked ahead of him are Blue Flash, Five Blue, Ninja Blue, and Owl Ranger from Go Ranger. I would probably put him at like the top of my B tiers, honestly, but I don't see anything that could justify putting him in A tier.
Nah.
No, and that's okay. He doesn't need to be A tier.
No.
So, Anthony, what do you think?
I actually agree with y'all because, like I said, I don't hate Ren. But I don't dislike him either. I found him actually very likable. But he's just not a. He's more of a B/A tier ranger for me, honestly.
Yeah. This may not be a comparison that makes sense to y'all, but Ren to me is like No San to me, minus the dad jokes.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
my god.
I don't know if that makes sense to y'all. Does it make sense
it
to
makes
y'all?
A
me.
little bit, yeah. I would.
Where he
I'd still
like
probably
an,
put him ahead of No San, but
Oh no,
still.
100%. But same
Mhm.
type of character where he's from start to finish the same kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that comparison.
Yeah. Want to move on to Saki?
Yep. Saki, yellow.
Saki, I love. She's my homegirl. I just love her demeanor. I love the fact that she's part of the D3 princesses. But she also didn't okay, so she grew, but her growth comes because Mew came along, right? So
Yeah.
I would probably argue low A for her, like bordering back into the B category.
Yeah, for such a soft, kind of like the girly female character, she exuded a lot of confidence throughout the season, which was like, especially in comparison to the yellow that came after her, who was very like uncertain of herself for most of the season.
Who came after
Uh,
her?
Kotoha, who was
Oh,
very
Suit. You're right. Okay.
yeah, she was very uncertain of herself, and she had to grow into that confident role. Having Saki be that way and be like the emotional support of the team, I think she's just kind of I have to put her on the same tier as Ren, where she's like, there's nothing wrong with her. I wish she developed more, but she
Yeah.
didn't. But there's nothing inherently wrong with her character. I think
Yeah.
she's better than Ren though, because
She
of
is.
those moments. Those moments with Mew elevated her a lot.
Yeah.
Exactly
But,
why I put her
yeah.
low A, because she is better than Ren,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I wanted to signify that somehow.
she's
Mhm.
definitely my second biggest riser here. I have her
Mhm.
as a low B in my original tier rankings. I'm gonna up her to a low A. I probably wouldn't put her below. I probably wouldn't put her above some of my. Well, maybe one or two of some of my A tier yellows, but A is probably like mid A, like to where she's kind of an A minus character. That's where I would probably feel comfortable keeping her because I don't. There's no way I can say that she's comparable with Kotoha, Domon, Himeno,
Nah.
or Luca.
No, dude, no
No.
way.
Those are the peak yellows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would give her also like a low A as well.
Yeah, she's. I mean, I. I don't. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna tell the writers anything bad though, because I don't see how. Like, on one hand, you could say that Kotoha is the better version of her, but Kotoha has a lot more emotional depth as a character. I'm not sure how you could have added that with Saki, but sometimes it's just okay to just say that like a character is an A or a B character, and that's just all that they're meant to be, and just leave it at that. And I think that's just what Saki is.
Yeah, I think Ren and Saki were more so meant to be like the support for Sosuke, where Ren was his logical ear and Saki was his emotional ear.
Yeah.
And they played that role for the rest of the Go-Ongers really well when the roster started getting filled out. So
Yep. So I guess we all agree she's a low A tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but now before we move on to the next two, do we want to like put them in tiers with like all Black and Green Rangers, or because this is where it gets a little confusing. Like, would we also be comparing Honto to like someone like Mega Black or something like that?
yeesh.
No, so let's pick up our
Green.
archetype. I think archetype works better. So put Hanto in the same archetype ranking as like Sion or
Okay.
like the more charismatic kind of homeboy best friend type guy.
Yeah, and we can and it's okay to like also just bring him up in comparison to other greens too, not
Yeah.
blacks, but greens is okay.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I would compare him to Sion over anyone else, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
a
also
very good
but it's
comparison.
also okay to compare him to his successor Chiaki, since Chiaki is
Yeah.
green.
Yeah, we can do that.
Oof.
If you're gonna
Which,
put
by
him,
the way, that's not a comparison. I'm not saying that is a comparison because it's not, but
no,
Yeah.
because Chiaki's an S tier.
Oh,
But yeah, it's no
definitely.
contest. Yeah, Shocky.
Yeah. Now for Hanto, I don't know what color we're gonna call it for his ranking or whatever, Nate. But if we're gonna just go like across Super Sentai and put him in a tier ranking, I don't know, man. Like he was really hit and miss for me throughout. Like there's sometimes where I'm like, oh, okay, Hanto's pretty cool. Other times I'm really lukewarm to him. And honestly, the lukewarm reception he got from me is because of the guy we have to talk about after this. Those interactions hurt him in my book. And so I'm sorry, but I think Hanto is more of a C tier.
I was about to say that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not the crazy mean one this time.
No, he feels like, because you were talking about Ren and Saki and their kind of consistency where they started off good and then stayed there. That's how I felt about Shion back when we were watching Time Ranger. Like he was pretty consistent throughout. He didn't have much development, but he was fine as where he was. It's just that the rest of the team around him was so, well developed for the most part that he kind of fell behind. I feel like Hanto could have benefited from that, because that inconsistency you mentioned is kind of what hurts him. Because you're right, he has some episodes where he's like, oh, he's just, he's the cool guy you want to hang out with. He's, he's nice, a little bit shy at times. But then he has those really goofy episodes where he's put in like these Looney Tunes situations, and you're just like, huh?
Well, and that's my complaint is if we had kept Hanto how he was in the first 5 episodes, where he was like shy and nervous but excited to be a Go-Onger.
Yeah.
And then you had like the episode where he is kind of circling duties to go work to meet girls. And that was his character base. And that stayed consistent throughout. Like maybe he did other fun stuff like that. He'd be a pretty solid B. But them forcing a Gunpei Hanto buddy cop type thing did not work. Like, I'm sorry. I thought the entire let me dress Hanto up like my girlfriend to fool my family because I don't want to get a girlfriend for real. That was completely stupid in my opinion.
Yeah, it really was.
And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't really care for the bathhouse scene in the endgame at the beginning.
No, I didn't. Even when
it just felt awkward. I don't want to be like, I don't want to come off as like bigoted or whatever, but it just didn't hit the way it could have. Like if we're gonna go for like the, a certain vibe of like romancy or something, that'd been different. But they tried to play the romanciness for laugh, and that's what I took issue with more than anything else.
Even when I was watching the Endgame arc originally, I just didn't feel like, even when I was watching it originally and I didn't have all these thoughts, or like, I was a bit younger back then, but when I was watching it originally, even I didn't really feel like Gunpei and Hanto's relationship was earned the way that they're trying to portray it here, where like they're really close. Like this is probably the one thing that RPM does better than a watcher, because in Dylan and Ziggy's case, Dylan's this, bad boy. I mean, he stumbles upon Ziggy and then he thinks Ziggy's annoying, but there's something about Ziggy that he likes, and he kind of adopts him as his best friend, although he's still annoyed. Like the chemistry works there. I just don't think that the chemistry and relationship between Gunpei and Hanto works nearly as much as this series thinks it does.
It doesn't work at all. There's nothing about those two that really scream, yo, these guys are fun. These guys are awesome.
Like even Ian Ian and Soji from Kyoryuger, they're a better example of a green
Yes.
black.
Yes, they
Yes.
are.
So much better.
And okay, so let me also say this. The reason I felt so distraught and so shooketh when these two died 4 episodes ago, it's not because I had any real connection to the two, but it was the feeling of, well, if these guys can go, what stops my favorite characters from going? Spoilers, they go to next episode, but
I
the
wonder
point
if that's
stands.
why. I wonder if that's why they were the first two to go, because even the writers were like,
No, it is why, because they had the less, they had the least impact of like
Yeah.
connectivity to the audience.
Mm.
Because I don't know, the trope of red, blue, and yellow being like the primary rangers throughout all of Sentai, I don't think that's ever been broken. I don't think we've ever not had that color combination.
Yep.
And so, you know, having, well, no, we've had seasons with no yellow actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, that idea of those three being the primary ones that you care about really works out, especially given. So I'd never thought about it this way until you guys mentioned it. Hey, Saki and Rin are basically like the guides to help Sosuke subtly get better. Like, that's a big deal, and that made us connect with those three a lot more because we're all kind of rooting for Sosuke, and in doing so, we had to appreciate Rin and Saki. But Hanto and Gunpei, they never really did anything to enhance the team. Like, Hanto would get into wacky hijinks and do something random with no real meaning, and Gunpei is just a worthless character.
We'll get to Gunpei in a second.
But the point is, like, there was nothing really significant about these two to make them really part of the team. That's why I was like, oh, okay, they're gone, but it sucks because I don't want like the good characters to go next. I don't want Hiroto and Miu to die. So that was kind of where I was coming from in that episode. Is like, dude, that's making me sick of, not because I had any connection to them, but because what does that mean for people I do like? And so Hanto for me is a definite C. Probably, this is probably the Rizwan talking, but he's a low C for me.
I have him ranked as a high C in my original rankings, and I feel pretty comfortable just keeping him where he is there.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Yeah. He's definitely like how Nate said that Kotoha was probably a Saki like fully developed. I feel like Hanto is Shion if they wrote him worse, and I think mid to low C is a pretty comfortable spot for him.
Okay, well, these next three Rangers are going to be pretty easy, but let's talk about Gunpei for a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Gunpei because I've been very vocal for quite a couple of podcasts now about this. So the Zerk part of Rizwan wants to throw Gunpei in the F tier, but that's not going to happen because he's not an F tier bad character. He's a D tier, a solid D tier. There's no like he's D plus, low C. No, he's completely D tier. He has maybe one episode of good writing for him throughout the entire season, and 49 episodes that work against him, basically.
Yep.
He could have been a really badass character, like Ian or like Guy, who are other blacks, right? Like he could have been something really cool. Ian's a bit less of a badass than Guy, but still the point stands.
It's so funny how his actor plays Ian's friend, almost as if like Gunpei had to die to make Ian the badass that he is. I wonder if that was the intention. Probably not, but still,
no, it's not.
That's an insane coincidence.
But so the problem with Gunpei has been throughout that he started off as this really cool, serious character, and one of our regular listeners mentioned that, hey, I think it's because this guy couldn't continue being a serious actor, but I call bull on that because he was doing pretty good as a serious actor for the first, 2 episodes. But then as we continue to go throughout the season, he turns into a really bad attempt at comic relief. Like, if he was comic relief in the same vein as, like, I don't know, Ziggy or Briggs or one of those guys, then he could have been really cool and really awesome. But he never was meant to be that. He was meant to start out to be this, and then he wasn't. And I think partly because Hiroto was being written as well later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It just seems kind of weird to me that this happened, that he was just written this way. I don't think he's just a bad character. Like, the things where he pulls Hanto in for his wacky hijinks, or the thing where he wants to be a cop, like, even in the epilogue, do y'all get the sense that he became a good cop? And I don't mean good like a really well established cop. I mean like good at his job. He doesn't seem competent as a cop, even in the epilogue. He seems like an idiot because he lost the damn key that got Hanto stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think Gunpei is just a badly written character. They didn't know what to do with him, and they needed something to fill a black suit because they already wrote in the black suit for the season, and they couldn't just, get rid of him without causing controversy. I think, but yeah,
he's the only faller for me in this season. I had him originally, but based on like 10-year-old knowledge, 10-year-old memories, I had him as a B tier. But yeah, I'm gonna put him in a D tier. There are other blacks that I would call worse than him, because Gunpei at least has a character, bad character, but still a character. And if you've seen some of the Showa era Sentais, you'll know that like there's a ton of Black Rangers that just don't have any straight up character. And even some in the modern Sentai, like I would still call him better than Gao Black and Gosei Black, because they're both like, who even are those characters? I know who Gunpei is. I don't like who Gunpei is, but at least I know who he is. So
yeah,
he's D tier for me. And like I said in previous podcasts, Black Rangers, you're either red hot or you're ice cold, with red hot being like great characters and ice cold being bad characters. Gunpei's not ice cold, like he's not frozen, but he's still cold.
I'll give him a D as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when Riz was going on his tangent, because I was trying to find a way to describe why Hanto and Gunpei didn't work. The core five had the team has a dynamic where like Sasuke is the soul of the team, Ren is like the logical backbone of the team, Saki is the emotional backbone of the team, and then I think, well, what would Hanto and Gunpei supposed to be? Gunpei felt like the childlike enthusiasm of being a hero that kind of like motivates them to keep going. And Gunpei would be the maturity of the team. But there's nothing mature about Gunpei. And that dynamic for the team just falls flat on its face, like he did hundreds of times. And that ended up going to the next character we're going to talk about, who actually ended up being the mature year of the team. Yeah. So when the role that Gunpei was supposed to be in, he doesn't even fit that role, then he has no role. And yeah, I think a D is a perfect place for him, because they didn't know what to do with him. No one knows what to make of him. He's forgettable.
All right, let's move on to we can tier them both together, but we can also tier them as separate characters, whatever we want to do. But let's move on to the GOATs of this season, Hiroto and Mew.
Okay, Hiroto Mew, S tier, top of the line. No one can even come close to them. Done.
Yeah. Hiroto is what Gunpei should have been. I'm just going to say that right now. Hiroto is what Gunpei should have been.
Yes, but then we wouldn't have Hiroto.
Yeah, that is true. So, but no,
And then Mew would have been
Hiruto,
strong.
I remember going to the season liking the Go on Wings. I didn't remember how well written they actually were. Hiruto was like the perfect rival character to Sasuke, where Sasuke was the hot-headed, act first, think later type of character, while Hiruto was the think extensively first, very, and then act off of his thoughts, and then kept his emotions calm and level. And they both started rubbing off on each other, where as we talked about with Sasuke, he became more level-headed and more serious when the times needed to be called for him to be serious. And Hiruto had moments where he did start acting a little bit more irrationally at times, and it worked to his benefit at moments. And they ended up respecting each other because they realized a mixture of both is the best way to handle problems. And he was a perfect character for this season. And then Mew was also like the backbone for Hiruto, almost like what Saki and Ren was to Sasuke. She was that way to Hiruto, the emotional backbone for him. And she had her own great dynamic of, she tried to play a tough girl, but she had her own life of being her own like girly girl way. And how they went from cocky to where we see you as equals.
Yep.
They're S tier 6 together as a unit and individually.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so as a unit, they're the best of the 6 Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Separate, I would put Mew over Hiruto.
Really?
Yeah, that's respectable.
Yeah.
Because Mew, in my opinion, I still like Hiruto a bit better, but I would still say that Mew is a bit more unique compared to Hiruto. Because here's the thing: if Hiruto still would have been a great character if he was the only 6th Ranger, but Hiruto being like this hardcore loner who kind of has to learn to accept the team. That's a type of archetype 6th Ranger that we've seen. Now, Hiruto is a great example of it, but we've seen this before. Like we saw with Gao Silver, Boken Silver, Time Fire, and there's a bunch of other 6th Rangers. If Mew was the only 6th Ranger, she wouldn't be a loner, but she wouldn't be like one of those people who's like eagerly wanting to be a member of their team. So she wouldn't quite be a Time Fire, but she also isn't going to be like a Genta type of 6th Ranger who just wants to like eagerly join the team or something. Like she's a bit more unique in her personality compared to other 6th Rangers. Not sure how else to describe that, but I think you guys can get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Basically, they need each other.
Yep.
Because they're each other's backbone, and that's what makes them so unique. Is that we've never had and we still don't have, like even after this, a 6th Ranger duo. So
I mean, maybe if you want to count Beat and Stagbuster, but
they're the same.
But I haven't.
But only difference is that they're part of a 3-man squad as opposed to being part of a 5-man squad.
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, like if Hiruto was buying, like Hiruto is ultimately just a very better version of like one of the best loner 6. Like he's up there with, like, to comment on, Sentai 6th Rangers that we've seen in the past. He's a better version of Naoto.
Yes.
In Mew's case, there's only one Mew. There's no one that you can compare Mew to. So I can definitely respect Riz for wanting to put Mew ahead of Hiruto.
The way you said Mewtwo just now made me think of Mewtwo the Pokemon.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Fight me.
No, Mew would kick your ass, and you know it.
But yeah, I had them pegged as A tiers in my original ones, high A tiers. But yeah, I'm moving them up to S tier.
Yeah.
And I'd go so far as to, well, actually, first Anthony can give his tier rankings, and then I'll say one more thing about them.
Oh, you already know I'm already with them S rank, but that's just me.
Well, yeah. So
it's just all of us.
Like, if we're comparing them solely to Rangers of their own colors, I would say Hiruto is undisputedly, and I say this even though I still technically have to see two more. Well, no, three more Sentai Gold Rangers in Sentai's all the way through. I have no problem saying that Hiroto is the goat of the Gold Rangers. Like,
Mhm.
like Genta's cool, but he like there's other great Gold Rangers. Like I think Maji Shine, Shinken Gold, Kyoryu Gold, and a Beat Buster are okay. I'm not a big fan of what I'm seeing from Tinbin Gold from Q Ranger, but he doesn't even have much of a character to begin with.
He's just kind of there. He's very robotic.
Yeah. I don't hear that many good things about Ryuso Gold, so I'm just going to assume I'm going to end up disliking him.
Yeah, he's all about trying to find a wife. That's all he's thinking about.
Okay. And then two Kaiser, and I think the Dom brothers one is a Gold Ranger. I'm sure that they'll be great characters, but Hiroto
Boy, you are not ready. You are not, okay. You're not gonna be ready for Dawn Brothers Sixth Ranger because boy,
okay.
you're not gonna like him at first, but boy, will he surprise you and he'll be you actually feel sorry for him at the end of the series.
But Hiroto just seems to be kind of in a league of his own when you compare him to regular Gold Rangers. Like, okay, Maji Shine could potentially compete with him, but I'm gonna hold back on definitively saying that until we review Maji Ranger here. But yeah, Hiroto is the GOAT of the Gold Rangers, in my opinion. Mew is where it gets a little trickier because there's a lot more Silver Rangers than Gold Rangers. But she's at least in the top three. Like I could obviously I have some bias toward Boken Silver, so I would say that I would at least say she's on par with Boken Silver, and then I have to still see Kira May Silver, who I hear some good things about, and the Sentai Wiki officially recognizes Rackless as Silver, even though I think he's gray. But if you want to include Rackless in that conversation, then I might want to say that Rackless is a little bit better, but
yeah,
Mew was a little bit more debatable. But in all fairness, that's not because Mew is inferior to Hiroto. It's just because there's not that many Gold Rangers, so Hiroto is just the best in a comparison of the very few. But in the case of Silver, for some reason, Toei had this addiction to using Silver Rangers as their Sixth Rangers for a bunch of Sentai, so Mew has a lot more competition.
Mm-hmm. I'll get to you here in a few weeks with the Boken Silver thing because I started on Bokenger a little bit last week.
Nice.
So I wanted to watch it on my free time over the Christmas break. So I'll get back to you on the Boken Silver Go On Silver thing.
and I'll be open to the idea that Boken Silver might not be the S tier character. I relate to him on more of a personal level, and it's going to be interesting when we do Bokenger. I recognize he's not for everyone, but so if you tell me that you don't consider him S tier, that's a perfectly acceptable opinion.
Yeah. But even compared to the two Silver Rangers the two other Silver Rangers that I've seen, Mega Silver and Gokai Silver, Mew dunks those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, we have tier ranked up our Ranger characters. So not a pretty bad cast. We got 3 S tiers, 2 B tiers, a C tier, and a D tier. So aside from that D tier, pretty good cast. So with that said, let's move on to the moment of truth to wrap this up. Let's each give our closing thoughts and our final grade or tier ranking and rating out of 10 for Go-Onger to wrap this whole thing up, guys. And anyone can go first.
I mean, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Engine Sentai Go-Onger has received a grade of S tier.
S out of 10.
Yes. Deal with it, dang it.
I
don't subscribe to your numbers.
A brief little closing thoughts. I was really excited to get to rewatch the season because, same with Nate, it'd been a decade since I'd watched it last, and I remember liking it a lot. I just didn't remember what it was about it I liked. But upon rewatching it, there was a lot more to the season than I remember, and most of it has aged really well. A fun season that ends on one of the highest notes a Sentai season can end on. I walked into this thinking I was going to give it an 8, but after rewatching the whole season, this is a 9. It does so many things well, and especially for a season that, like what Riz was harping on, that a large chunk of the community does not like. No, this is a 9. And if you're one of the people who doesn't like this season, please give it another thorough watch through. You're missing out on something really good here.
Yeah. And to kind of give some real thoughts and not my memeing. So Go-Onger, when I started watching this originally, was a good bit before we actually started podcasting, because Patrick had hyped up the season quite a bit to me, and I was very intrigued to see what it was all about. And, when I first started watching, I was like, okay, this is pretty fun, pretty interesting. And then as the series progressed, I was like, oh, wait, this is actually pretty damn good. This is really freaking good. What the hell is Reddit smoking?
So that's 2 Sentais in a row that we've hyped up for you that end up living up to the hype for you, Riz.
Yeah, but Time Ranger failed.
Yeah, but that's still two out of 3. That ain't bad.
Yeah.
Gingaman and Go-Onger, yeah.
Yeah, Gingaman and Go-Onger did really well on the hyping. Patrick's current recommendation for me is not really working out too well yet, but we'll see what happens in a couple episodes.
I'm waiting for you to get to the ending.
Yeah.
I'm not going to defend the first 13 something episodes of Kaku Ranger.
I'm just wondering how you're going to feel, Riz, with another Sentai, and I'm not going to mention by name here, when you start watching that one, because we haven't been hyping it up for you. We've more been de-hyping, saying, oh, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. I wonder if the de-hyping will live up to the de-hype.
I mean, that's a couple of seasons that y'all have been doing that for, so I don't know. We'll see.
Watch Dawn Brothers. You might need to finish up Zen Kaiser.
Yeah,
I like Zen Kaiser so far.
It's a good season. I'll finish the entirety of it. But I just feel like maybe once you watch that and then get to Dawn Brothers, you'll be able to kind of because it kind of feels like it's a second part somewhat, but not really. That makes sense.
No, I've read a lot of people tell me that Dawn Brothers is a spiritual sequel to Zen Kaiser.
Yeah.
But no, I think Go-Onger had a lot of really good things going for it. The biggest complaint I'm going to have against Go-Onger is Gunpei needed something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Hanto needed something to do. Other than that, I mean, the rest of the cast is pretty good. Sosuke and the Wings are probably my favorite things about the season. And I don't know. I think one thing we haven't really talked about too much are the engines. And I'm kind of curious, what do you guys think of them as characters as on a whole?
The dynamic that they brought. And it's weird because the three of us here, you, me, and Anthony, we met each other through Digimon.
Yeah.
And the engines and the Go-Ongers have a partner Digimon dynamic. And I love that about the season. They feel like the adventure cast where the partners reflect their human counterpart a little bit. Where Sasuke and Speedor are the high energy motivators. Ren and Busan were the logical ones. Saki and Baravi were the girl power duo, and so forth. And it makes me wish that more seasons did something like this, but at the same time, if more seasons did something like this, then the engines wouldn't feel as special.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a really good way to put it, to compare back to Digimon, which is something I also really love. And I think, honestly, I think the Digimon connection, us growing up with it, is kind of what made Go-Onger even more special to me, at least. Because Go-Onger, it has a lot of Digimon vibe, especially the adventure vibe. I mean, honestly, Patrick, Anthony, Sosuke might be Tai.
Not to the egregious extent, because Taichi, I think, went through a more obvious character arc than Sasuke did, but I see where you're going with that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, it's the same extent that I would probably say something to the effect of, if you had put the characters of Sora and Mimi into one body, you might get something that comes out like Saki.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, yeah, I mean, and the same is kind of true for Zoe and Izzy if you put them into Ren's body. God's sake.
Yeah.
God dang.
You're making too much sense here.
Now, one would expect me to follow it up by saying TK and Hiruto and Mew and Kairi, but I can't do that.
No.
That's where their comparison ends. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But no, I think the season had a lot of really fun stuff going for it. I'm really glad I had a chance to watch it, and good job on being 2 for 2 or 2 for 3 if you want to be technical about it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. Go ahead.
I'm glad that you liked the season, because I wasn't too certain how you were going to feel about a season that had a little less of a start to finish serious tone, like we had just gotten out of with like Ginga Man and stuff.
No, so I mean, my thing is, I'm not looking for like a serious start to end. I'm looking for something with amazing character development with a really fun story to go with it. And here we got that on both ends.
And that's another reason. And that's another reason why I was recommending this season, because you mentioned one time a while back that you liked Kyoryuger because you liked its fun atmosphere. And I was like, Go-Onger is a season that reminds me a lot of Kyoryuger with its tone.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a good recommendation that you made.
I think it's better than Kyoryuger, if I had to be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
It's better than Kyoryuger.
That's not even a question, dude.
Yeah, it is. It's not a question at all.
Yeah.
Anthony, what would you give for your grade/tier ranking?
Definitely deserves a 9. Only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is really because of Gunpei. That's really my only issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to force me onto the numerical scale, I am going to give it a 9.
I would personally give it a 9, and it's actually it's a big riser on my tier ranking. I have it ranked in my original tier ranking as a low A tier. I would probably put it in the S tier. The one thing that I don't know what I would say is would I put it in my top 5? Because I really want to put it in my top 5, but the thing is that maybe I would consider taking Live Man out of my top 5, because I need to watch Live Man again, and it's a show era season, so it probably hasn't aged as well. So I might consider taking out Live Man to make room for Go-Onger, but at the very least, Go-Onger is in the top 10, and it's just barely out of the top 5. Like, it would be 6 in my opinion. So it's a great Sentai. I really enjoyed watching it when I originally watched it, but watching it a second time, it's a lot better than I imagined. Because that's the funny thing. I mean, it's kind of like with Ginga Man, how now this is a bit more extreme compared to Go-Onger, but when I watched Ginga Man originally, I liked everyone, but I hated Hikaru. Then I end up watching the thing again, and I think Hikaru, he's actually a pretty decent yellow. This one, I watched it, thought it was a great Sentai. I'm watching it again, and it's easily the most underrated Sentai ever. But even calling it underrated isn't really doing it justice, because it's genuinely amazing. So it's more than just underrated. So it's 9 out of 10. It's an S tier, and anyone who wants to bash this Sentai, you can come on here in this podcast and fight us. Okay. We're not joking.
Bring it.
Okay, I'm not fighting nobody.
Okay, 3 of us will fight you then.
Yep.
Okay, but also we won't bring just anyone on here. You got to be like interesting.
Yeah.
You can't just come on here and say, Go-Onger sucks. And then
we will fight you. Terms and conditions may apply.
We'll debate you. We're not going to I'll debate you.
fight
Yeah,
you.
you gotta actually debate us, and you gotta actually make a compelling reason for us to even want to do a podcast to talk to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I
do we
think
have
that's
any
what I
other?
meant when I said I wasn't gonna fight anybody. I was just gonna just debate people. That's it.
Yeah. Do we have any other closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
I'm ready for you to talk about what we're doing next.
All right, cool. All right, so that wraps up Go-Onger. We are going to be doing we've had a lot of fun talking about Go-Onger. We hope you guys have also enjoyed it just as much as we have. Now, we're not quite done with Go-Onger just yet. We're still going to be doing the 2 crossover movies with Go-Onger. So we're going to be doing Go-Onger versus Geki Ranger. Again, I'm sorry, Riz. And then we're going to be doing Go-Onger versus Shinkenger.
You're welcome, Patrick.
Yay!
Yeah, exactly. And then we're going to be doing RPM. And if we decide that we're not quite sure whether or not we're going to do this podcast or not, although it is actually a possibility, we might actually do a Toku Clash versus with RPM and Go-Onger.
That would be the most disastrous one we could possibly do because they're so vastly different.
But yeah, we will be doing RPM at some point. And yeah, sorry, Patrick. And we might do a Toku Clash. We might not. That's for us to decide. And we'll just tell you whether or not we're going to do it at some point in a future podcast. But with that being said, the big question on everyone's minds is going to be, what are we doing next? Well, you guys are just going to have to wait and find out. You're going to have to wait a couple of other podcasts. We got something special planned for you, but you're going to have to wait. It's going to be a surprise this time.
Find out next time in 2025. Toku Secrets Podcast. Bigger, better, stronger.
Yep.
Less gunpei.
But yeah, we got a lot of stuff planned for you guys. By the time this is posted, it'll more than likely be 2025. So we got a lot of stuff planned for you this year. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it, and we hope you guys will catch all of us, when we do RPM and when we do our next Sentai series and when we start reviewing Go-Onger as well. We'll see you guys next time, but until then, bye for now. If you enjoyed listening to the Toku Secrets podcast, please check us out at animesecrets.org and follow us on all our social media pages such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also feel free to check out our other podcasts, including Anime Declassified and the Jedi Squadron. You can also leave us any feedback you'd like to offer us directly on our website. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much, and please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed, and leave any comments down below, as we love to take the time to read comments left on our channel and give our fans, shout-outs. If you have any seasons of Super Sentai, Power Rangers, or other Tokusatsu shows that you'd like for us to check out, please don't hesitate to say so in your feedback. With all that said, we thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our podcast, and we will see you next time as we continue our never-ending journey through the world of Tokusatsu. But until that time, you all stay safe, we love you, and may the power protect you.